the pirates. "Professor, there's something strange over here," one of her students asked from a nearby side room. And Valiance is there in moments, her practiced gait easily allowing her to pick her steps around sensitive areas without losing stride. The rest of the class is either already nearby or following closely for whatever this next discovery or lesson will be. She had long taught her students that the best things start off with a note of, "That's strange." "Oh no," Professor Valiance recognizes the item right away. Or rather, what's left of it. It was exactly the reason she had been so hard on Baron Smith. This, girls, is why we do everything we can to avoid axiom tainting a sight. The device looks like a cube that once had a sphere inside it that stuck out the edges. It's on the floor and stuck at an odd angle, but still shimmers as if it were new. And in a sense it was. This is a Alvari-Charana device, so named due to the scientist Alvari-Charana who first created them. They are old-fashioned and not commonly used, but are one of the most dense and easily accessed information storage devices in the galaxy. Self-preserving, self-correcting, and it was in the study of these devices that a substantial part of the Gravia Code was created. It is capable of creating and sustaining an axiom-born brain for simplicity's sake. But it's off. Yes, it's off. It's off because when not maintained, they, and numerous other artifacts of equal value, grow increasingly sensitive to the local axiom fields. So much so that this one recently encountered a terrible recursive error due to the shift in the field and has deactivated in its entirety. The information is lost. You've seen this before? Yes, there are a dozen or so similar axiom devices that are easily made and find common use in unexpected places. And all devices based on the Alvari-Charana methodology grow increasingly susceptible to their environment as they age. If Baron Smith hadn't teleported in here, it might still have been destroyed. But the odds of that are fairly low as we have scarcely used any axiom in the area. But even what little we used might have set it off. This is one of the hardest lessons of the archaeologist. Sometimes things simply cannot be recovered no matter how many precautions are used or how careful or delicate your touch. Sometimes things just refuse to be anything other than broken. Still, it looks like it's new. It's a delicate and elegant tool when you run axiom through it, Professor Valiant says, picking up the fallen Alvari-Charana device and holding it up for everyone to observe. It's very easy to reactivate as well, but the information is already wiped. It's very much a flaw that many see as a feature. With just a light touch of axiom, the innumerable markings on the inside of the hollow cube begin to glow a soft blue and quickly project an orb of blue light within the cube. There, it's already ready. Professor Valiance lets go of the device and it floats in midair. Now, in case you ever run into one of these or something similar at a dig in the future, here is what you do to reinforce and preserve the information inside. She then very clearly indicates clusters of markings around the corners and slowly pours axiom through those. See? It's that easy. If they're that easy to preserve, then why don't we see more of them? If they can hold so much information and are so easily fixed, then why aren't they all over the place? Several reasons. Reason one is, of course, the constant maintenance. As it is now, it can endure a lot of changes. But leave it a single week and it will be delicate again. The maintenance may be easy, but most people are lazy. Another is that there's no real way to protect your information on this. You can't see it because this one is blank, but when the information is in the sphere, it takes very little know-how. And often you can just muddle through, literally grabbing the information you want and brushing aside any and all protections. And the other reasons? Well, look at the size of this thing. Not even a Canador is smuggling one under her shirt, and it's not exactly a subtle thing when it starts playing back information. So it's delicate, it's loud, it doesn't protect things, and it's annoying to move. Thankfully, it's also trivial to make, massively capable of storing stupid amounts of information and recalling it all with no data degradation. You can fit the combined libraries of 5 planets on just one of these, and considering how easy they are to make, that's not short of astounding. In calmer and more stable systems, there are entire libraries that are trying to get one of everything in their storage. They tend to use these wonderful devices, and you can lose yourself for days going through a cultural binge of a species you've never met before. Goodness, it's how I learned how to properly understand trill speech. I still speak it like an amateur, though. I can't get the rhythm. I do declare on this day that such is a pity to hear you say, Delicate Flutter says, first in shrill speech, then repeating herself in galactic trade when Professor Valiance gives her a sideways look. The Earthani girl holds up her claws in mock surrender, and there's clearly a smile under her fur. After a few moments of people questioning if trill speech really translates like that, and both Flutter and Professor Valiance confirming that it was in fact a direct translation. Although for sake of comparison, the professor tries to say it herself in trill speech, and the pronunciation is so bad that Delicate Flutter nearly hurts herself trying not to laugh. Please spare my fragile feelings, Professor Valiant says dryly. Now, is everyone clear on what this relic is, and why it's been rendered useless as more than a curiosity? Well, it does have some use. Wouldn't it date the site somewhat? It does. The site is under 4,000 years of age, which means we have a bit more work to do until we narrow down what epoch it's from, Professor Valiance notes. Now spread out, girls. Each room has had a preliminary scanning only. We need more information. The little lights on the air cycle are all that's giving them something to see by as Cheria and Franklin slowly fly through the black water trench. It does express more color than this world has ever seen before, as most things are revealed to be so pale that a ghost would tell them to get more sun, if not straight up transparent. There's no need for camouflage or protection from harmful radiation down here. The water above absorbs all of it. There are tiny white lights glowing in response, and they drift up to see a large serpent decide that the bike is a little too rich for its blood, and it moves on as its lights wink out. The matte black form is designed to look like more seafloor, despite the phosphorescent parts. Perhaps ironically, a series of fish with tiny glowing spots start examining the serpent as it tries to leave. It's clearly been put off its normal appetite, or can't really consider eating if it hasn't lured things close properly. The animal kingdom has much otter as an adaptation for survival. Heck, it could be a defense against possibly parasite-ridden or sick prey animals. Then a huge split beak something shoots out of the water and goes right for the bike, only to find itself suddenly frozen in midair and staring down a pair of blade arms. That's a trineal, Franklin says after a few moments. Big one, too. Huh, is it edible? Cheria asks. Only technically. By whose standards? By any standard, they're typically parasite-ridden. Gives them a monster of an appetite, Franklin says. They can be eaten, but you need to deworm just about every part but the bones. Gross, Cheria notes as she pilots the bike around the frozen predator, and she reaches out as if she wants to poke out one of its eyes. It's moved out of her reach and she swings the bike closer, only for him to once again move the trineal out of reach. And so a new game begins as Cheria keeps trying to poke a large predator that Franklin is endlessly moving just a little bit out of reach. Come on, Cheria says as she tries to impale the ugly monster in the eye. It's just a few centimeters too far. Come on. No, protecting ourselves from animals is one thing. Hurting them without cause is another. Franklin notes and she lets out an annoyed chirp before finally giving up. Fine, let's let the big snappy thing that tried to kill us go. It's just a hungry animal. Until I see proof of it going out of its way to do something horrible, then it's just an animal. To be respected, but never feared or hated. And if it starts showing signs of sadism, things have been exterminated for less, but it would have to kill without trying to eat, defend its territory or itself, and it would have to be something it does while healthy and clearly in its right mind. At that point, if there is an animal like that, then I'd wipe it from the face of Vuxa. Something that's just endlessly and pointlessly dangerous is not something you tolerate if you don't have to. Outer space is massively dangerous. Outer space is a dangerous environment, not a creature, an environment you navigate and adapt to. An animal you deal with, either by taming it, avoiding it, ignoring it, running it off if it's hostile, or killing it if it refuses to be intimidated. And what would it be if it was malevolent? An active threat. Those get nullified. And the only question is how thorough you want to be. An animal you can't disarm except in the most literal way possible. So that's out. Capture is available. But if an animal refuses to behave and will leave preserves to try and hurt people, it gets to die. If it's actively killed someone, it dies. If it's eaten someone, It dies fast before it can pass that to other animals. This thing wants to eat us. It doesn't know what we are. It's just snapping at what looks like a big meal. It would probably only... Franklin begins to explain before a wave of sound pushes through the water and the whale song echoes around. The Trini eel starts to thrash and Franklin gives it one chance to leave. It does. A mirage whale? Chiria asks. Yes, hope you don't mind, but I'm giving another woman a call. Franklin says, pulling out his communicator. Which means Professor Valiance is cut off by her communicator going off. She brings it out and puts it on broadcast. This is Professor Valiance. Why are you interrupting my lesson? Just a quick warning, Franklin says. Of what? We're within a few kilometers of your position, and we're hearing a mirage whale. It seems like something you would want to know. We don't have any plans of having a scan powerful enough to provoke one, but thank you anyways. Was there anything else? She asked. Trini eels are nasty suckers, aren't they? They are indeed. We spotted one and it goes after anything that glows. Oh, so that's why that one attacked us. Why are you in Trini eel hunting grounds? Interesting scenery. The matter in which your mind works terrifies me on a truly fundamental level. Professor Valiance remarks in a very dry tone. Nearly half her class is smothering the urge to laugh. You should see him on a bad day. Woo! Chiria calls in, and a few lose the fight and start laughing. I'm not that bad. You've left the imprint of your palm on the core of the nearby gas giants just to see if you could. You signed it. If you could, you'd do it too. That's not the point. The point is you can and did do it. That wasn't a no. You would if you could. Not the point, but you would if you could. Is this going to go on for a while? Because this sounds like something that I should hang up on, Professor Valiance asks Riley. You should. This is a common bit of fun we have. We're in the loop. You should. Chiria agrees and the call is ended to the amusement of the class. Well, with that warning and the bit of entertainment out of the way, as well as the disturbing implications that man has been teleporting at a system-wide level aside, we were speaking about the distinct lack of heat scoring in the rooms with the dead bodies, which means that the most common ranged weapons of laser and plasma have not been used in this scenario. It does not rule out ranged combat entirely, but it does narrow the possibility